Bonjour tout le monde. Aujourd'hui, c'est le 31 janvier 2024. Je niaise. I'm messing with you guys. Good morning, everyone, or hello, everyone. It is Wednesday, the 31st of January, 2024. And I'm going to be talking about international events that have been not mentioned at all in my last few videos because I've been talking a lot about specifically flat Earth stuff or just previous stuff I've posted or preparing for my interview with Dave Weiss yesterday, and I have not been sharing on my videos the international events. And so, also a fun fact, I shared this on my Instagram, but my video from last year, a few months ago, on my YouTube regarding the moon landing hoaxes, and then brackets again. I got a strike on YouTube because of that. Actually, maybe I'll just pull it up if it's still up. And I shared yesterday Eric Dubé's NASA moon landing and Mars landing hoax, and I pinned this video itself as well. And it was a hell of a recommended. What was it going for again? I totally forget. It's going to go in my history for something. I'm going to show you my channel. just so you can see the strikes. Go to my dashboard. Yeah, I get a lot of videos removed or strikes on videos, even just because of the titles. And so this word right here, apparently you can't even use it in a title because it's seen as hate speech, which is insane to me. I'm saying the protocols of the learned elders of Zion, and just by that title, that is seen as hate speech. And anyway, they're just tagging things. This was also harassment and cyberbullying. Again, they just switch categories. They don't even look at the videos. Like I'm sure that this is automatically done because they even do this like after months, if not years, sometimes with these strikes. They come at me after, like they come at me with at a later date is what I wanted to say. And whiteboard all came true. So it's this one here. And my strike expires next month. And it said medical misinformation. I don't even know where you're getting that out of, like the moon landing hoax is exposed again, but it is what it is. And so this is what I mean, like with YouTube, it's unfortunate that it's got to that point where a large majority of my videos, if you want to get like the most up-to-date stuff that's not being censored, it's going to be Rumble, because on my my Rumble account, that video obviously is still up and you could see it. And so you're welcome to go back and watch it. It's November 19th. It was posted of last year. And so roughly 10 weeks ago or whatever. And it's a really good video. I'm not just saying that. It's like I'm sharing videos and footage from experts and various different categories and classifications that are sharing that. And so I'm just going to pull it up. Sorry, I was just looking for the video again, just to show you what it looks like on Rumble. Oh, wrong Rumble screen. You got so many tabs up. Okay, so this is I posted this November 19th in the afternoon. Only 157 views. Again, I still I have two channels for some reason. I don't know why it's like that, but Don 189 and Analyst, and not a lot of followers, but yeah, a lot of proof about the moon landing hoaxes. Just more for Matt Walsh that I didn't share yesterday, and I've shared more than this. I'm just showing you that this is another video that you would not see on YouTube, and but that I have on Rumble, and that I've been sharing even this for years. I'm going to stop sharing that now. I've talked about geoengineering, weather modifications, chemtrails, contrails, stuff like that for just as long as everything else. And I've also shared treaties that have been put in place by Canada and the US regarding it. And patents that have been created and for many years, over a century in some cases too, with dispersal systems like for aerosol to disperse chemicals or things of the nature in the clouds. And people have been calling that a conspiracy theory for a very long time. It's been frustrating because no matter how much proof you share, and even saying like, look in the sky, you know what I mean? Like that's it's obviously just at a very minimum, like impacting our like the sun's visibility and stuff like that, and causing like weather modification, like sun and rain and stuff like that. And just because even with what they're calling harmful particles, like the aluminum oxide and the and things like that, these are not harmless, especially at the levels we're being exposed to. And so I shared this, but I definitely want to have you guys have a listen. I hope you can hear it.
Station in Dallas posted this, and it's a picture of this radar, and then saying, hey, like you would think that this is rain, but it's not. It's actually the military dropping tiny fiberglass particles covered in aluminum and plastic. And the reason the military is dropping these fiberglass particles is because they use this to fool the radar into thinking that it's precipitation versus military planes. And this is a normal military exercise that happens all the time across the country. People were outraged. So they posted this saying, hey, we only post what we know. This is really happening. And if you want to know more about it, go to this article. Then naturally, if you go to the article, is trash safe for humans and the environment? The government says, yes, probably. Yeah, the shards of aluminum, fiberglass, and plastic used by the military to help them spread.
So they're admitting it, and that content's out there, and so fiberglass, aluminum, plastics, and to hide their travel, and it's causing microplastics, things like that, to be inhaled and ingested deep within our organs, and yeah, and so it's like I'm really hoping that this is the year of truthers being able to like get this information out and stopping like being friggin' called theorists when we're debunking the theories that are continuously being proven wrong. So there's that. I have a friend that he's part of the Ethos and Eris show podcast, and he's on Discord as well, where he shares access to information requests that he's submitted. And I've actually got him to do submissions on behalf of this as well, specifically. And I gave a list of various different chemicals and heavy metals and toxins and stuff like that, like how much the Department of National Defense and the military, how much they purchase and how much they spread, and so how much they use. And so I really want to see that, and I think that's why too, because that was a few months ago, and they have a certain amount of time before that, they have a limited amount of time before they have to respond, right? Like they do need to respond within a certain amount of time, is what I wanted to say. Why was that so difficult? Maybe it's because it's really early in the morning. I've not finished my coffee yet. Oh, I don't know. I don't want to insult anyone by saying Aussie. But oh man, I was on my way to Australia and landed in San Francisco when the pandemic was officially declared in Canada, and I had like my phone blew up because I was in the international security industry at that time, very much so. I had already been incorporated, and I was working with all levels of friggin' government, higher levels, and they wanted me to come back because they wanted me to do like assessments, and we didn't know how this was going to be, if it was this. Anyway, it is what it is, and I was also booked to go to Iceland to do like a 10-day trek in the mountains, like that Thor's Trail, whatever you want to call it, in Iceland, and go to the hot springs and the mud huts and stuff like that, and just do like some backpacking, and that, like, I waited, but it's actually the airline that friggin' canceled in June as well, even though I was fine and other people were fine. It was only after the therapeutic rollout that things started to be not as fine. But anyway, I digress. That's all coming out as well. I'm going to share a video on that. So let's see here. I've talked about contrails, chemtrails, things like that. So this is from Eva Chipiuk. I believe she's Canadian. She has good content. So something is seriously wrong here. The total amount allocated for the vaccine injury support program was $310,002, but the cost to administer the program was $20,310,002. Over 60% of the budget allocated for vaccine injury is going towards consultants administering the program rather than benefiting the vaccine injured individuals. This misallocation raises concerns about the effectiveness and purpose of the program. It is alarming when the program costs more than the actual payout, highlighting a significant problem. Let's take a moment to reflect on it and then just giving the breakdown. And so now I'm going to go into my stories. I'm just going on what I've posted on my Instagram. I'm very heavily censored on Instagram.
I think
it's DAWNDUSSAULT.
I think, as I said in my
and you're going to get a warning too, by the way, if you attempt to follow me on Instagram. And you have to type my name in full, like I said, because I'm very shadow banned. Okay, so this is Jody Thomas. She's someone that's not relevant at all, but like she's a liar, and she's lied on Ottawa News, on multiple different social media platforms in Canada.
Testimony.
And if you look at my previous videos on Rumble, especially Don 189, you'll see that I've called out so much of the BS regarding the Freedom Convoy before it even landed here. I was calling it out even on my whiteboard that I've shared. It's obviously like I've got new whiteboards now, but I was in contact with all levels of government and let them know, just so it wasn't something that the people that were leftists within government too, they were trying to incite a riot that first weekend. Believe it or not, people, leftists, aligned with the liberal government, believe it or not, like Brian Fox and Marco Mendocino was also part of this as well. And there were government plants and crisis actors, role players that were involved, and people like myself, we were on the front lines calling this stuff out peacefully and showing who these people were. And even before they got here, I was saying the scripts and the roles that they would play, and say would just be like an attempt of like January 6th. And so when we have liars, even after the Emergency Act was declared unconstitutional and illegal, when we have Karens like this, Jody Thomas, you know what I mean, that are still lying. It's just after years I've even sent messages. I've shared this on various social media platforms, all levels of cabinet and government and the experts and the media, all of these people, the adverse side effects that were reported, the legal implications, just the all of that stuff. And it was left unanswered, even though I was giving my resume, my security clearance, calling as well, so proving that I'm not crazy. I was giving my information, including my address, right? I was saying, please contact me. You are harming people. You are killing people. And even with like the financial crimes that were being committed by people like Chrystia Freeland, and saying that she's not responsible for her actions, or not responsible for the declaration of the Emergency Act when she's the deputy minister. You're second in command, lady Chrystia Freeland. The irony in that I've also called out many times. Okay, you're the deputy. So if anything happens to Justin Trudeau, you take over. Okay. And so any decision that he makes, you're supposed to be aligned with, and you're getting the same information as him. It's left seat, right seat, right, honey? Okay. And as someone who was infantry, as an officer for 15 years, any the 2 IC and the IC, the in command and the second in command, they are literally fire team partners, and the sergeant major and the operations sergeant. Like, you know what I mean? There's other people as well. Like there's senior NCOs, obviously clearly in that as well. But I'm just saying, like, if anything happens to the IC or the platoon commander, it's the warrant that takes over, for example. And so you need to be aware of things. And so, and just the ignorance of anyway. So here she is. Last night, CTV allowed Jody Thomas to spread complete lies and disinformation regarding the Freedom Convoy. The media in Canada is a direct threat to our democracy, and this is state-funded, and this is hate speech, and it's lies. So how come she's not someone that's in jail or getting charged or her bank account frozen?
What we were seeing in terms of activity on the ground and intelligence was very clear. There was a huge occupation here in Ottawa. It was increasingly violent. We were starting to hear language about weapons being in the trucks. We had the arrest in Coots, which was a significant weapons cache, and very concerning, the charges that have been laid there.
And so this weapons cache that this Karen, that's as nice as I could be, is talking about is he's in Alberta, first of all, and like by the age of 5, people have like rifles and friggin' all of that stuff. Like I was raised a blend, but more in the Gaspésie, but also in the city. But in the Gaspésie, people learn how to hunt and shoot at a very young age, and they're responsible with it. And I was raised with even like gun racks in trucks, like in the back seat, like in the back window, or laying on the like in the back seat. Like people would literally go to school with rifles. When I was going to school, even in junior high school, I'm not making this up, and they would put their rifles in the locker to hunt after school. And so, and there were never any friggin' issues. Surprisingly, there was never any school shootings, none of that stuff. Crazy. And there was French and English and what we classify as indigenous peoples all working, living, and going to school in the same friggin' like areas in a lot of places too. And not like the issues that we're seeing now. No. And that's why I don't understand. Anyway, I'm going on all these tangents already.
Indicative.
Oh yeah,
of what was going on.
And so talk about a weapons cache. When multiple people that I know as well, they're law-abiding citizens, zero criminal record, of service to Canada, over 40 years as a truck driver, sometimes even 6 days a week, like my stepfather. Over 3 million hours clocked logged as a truck driver, long haul and short haul, even delivering medical supplies across the border during the pandemic and stuff like that as well. And then him being oppressed and vilified and character assassinated through all of this. And construction workers, laborers, but actually don't destroy heritage sites and churches and landmarks and stuff like that, like a lot of morons are doing in Ottawa and in the outskirts, destroying our land and stuff like that, like they have no business doing. But people that are actually building and refurbishing land, like old land landmarks and heritage areas to preserve them, right? So like my family as well, like we have my uncle, like he has like 26, 27 years that he had of service to Canada as well in the military, working as an engineer. He was EOD, part of the EOD Iraq team in Afghanistan as well. He has multiple deployments, even including Bosnia Herzegovina, and I could go on, right? It's like people of fucking service, and there are people, like I was saying, like innocent, good people that have multiple firearms because they're hunters or they do it for sport, and they've never they're not an issue to people, right? And so when she's talking about a weapons cache, like these dummies could go to anyone's freaking house, in a rural area, especially, and if they see like a rifle or a shotgun or a handgun or whatever, even people that, and she's failing to say that they had pals. They had they had the proper registration, they had the proper paperwork, they had the proper licenses to have these firearms. So when she's saying weapons cache, she has no idea what she's talking about, and it's just, I'm sick of it.
and what was being planned, and we had to take action to end it. There was an economic threat to Canada. There was a security threat to Canada.
By you.
There's a reputational threat to Canada.
By you.
But what we didn't know was as concerning as what we did know, and we knew a lot. And what do you mean by that? We knew a lot about what the plans were, that these people were going to stay.
They were going to stay until you listened and heard.
Group of people who thought they were going to overthrow the government.
No, that didn't happen. No proof.
Obviously, that wasn't going to happen, but they were here to stay, and they were using intimidation and violence and threat to ensure that the.
I can't even listen to her, but I shared it if you want to listen to it. Like blatant lies, and these are people that are getting the platforms. So I've emailed CTV, CBC, Fox Global, all of these friggin' outlets, Toronto Star, Ottawa Sun, even Rebel News, multiple times, and all of these to do interviews and stuff like that. And no, not at all. But these people get an audience and a platform. And talking about weapons caches and stuff like that. First of all, I've shared this in previous videos, but like it was all unsubstantiated and was all built on lies and based on lies from people that they were calling counter-terrorist experts, like Justin Ling, whose work experience exists of working at Vice News and is a leftist aligned with the Liberal government, worked for CBC for many years and does articles for them, has no experience in the international security defense or like organizations, whatever you want to call it, has not been of service to Canada or Canadians, zero qualifications, not an expert, no government clearance. Yet they went off his articles, and there's no names in any of these either. There's no so there was zero proof, zero grounds. It was all just based on hearsay from friends, and I wonder how much they got paid to do that. It was a lot of money. Spoiler alert. And I'll get into the ArriveCan app as well.
During the AIDS crisis, Dr. Fauci
The following are actual facts surrounding the mysterious deaths of top microbiologists over a decade prior to the 2020 pandemic. Professor Wiley performed biological research, sometimes jointly funded by the Department of Defense and the NIH. He was an expert on the human immune response to infection and had recently investigated several dangerous viruses, including HIV, Ebola, herpes, and influenza. Professor Wiley's body was recovered from the Mississippi River about a month after his disappearance. More biologists started to die under suspicious circumstances. Many were world-acclaimed scientific researchers specializing in infectious diseases and biological agents, such as anthrax, HIV, and DNA sequencing. As the body count of infectious disease experts continued to climb, connections to weapons research began to surface. By 2005, we lost 40 microbiologists in less than 4 years. Some were found stabbed to death in the trunk of cars, and some wrapped their cars around trees after their brake fluid disappeared. During this time, it was discovered that they all worked with the government or government contractors on projects related to bioterrorism, flu pandemics, or anthrax.
So you wonder why I'm a little nervous with what I share sometimes as well? Because fun fact, I have a political science degree with multiple minors, like even including physics and chemistry and stuff like that from RMC. But I'm also it's on hold, but on my 4th year for an actual real what I would consider to be science degree, cognitive science, was going to be my focus, but it's on hold now because a lot of the science courses are teaching a woke agenda at Ottawa University, at Carleton University, and so I'm trying to share information to refute what they're pushing, and no one's biting. So I have countless emails as well to heads of departments, professors, and giving facts and proof and data, and they refuse to look at it. And then even COVID teams as well at Carleton University and other education systems in Ottawa for years, giving them the information and them instead giving me a wellness check. Having someone that sounded like she was 12 years old, no offense, okay, call me up and ask me if I was okay because of concern over an email. I'm like, did you read the email? No, I didn't read the email. I'm like, okay, so you have no idea what I'm talking about. So I'm like, can I have your name and your email address so I can forward you the email? And don't bother me with this stuff. And literally the email was regarding nothing in it except for facts, medical, government, and scientific data. And then just a breakdown of a brief synopsis of the links that I was sharing, just like I've shared as references here as well. And so trying to prevent more harm and suffering and lockdowns and mandates and restrictions and forced inoculations gets you a wellness check. You're crazy, right? When you have concern about what's and this has been for years. So let's go on.
Did you see Elon Musk tweeted that public relations is crap?
Ukraine has unearthed a 40...
Did you see Elon Musk tweeted that public relations is propaganda for the word propaganda? It's actually historical fact. It all started with Edward Bernays, the father of public relations. He literally wrote the book Propaganda, and he was the inspiration behind Joseph Goebbels. In the 1920s, he convinced a woman to smoke cigarettes by claiming it was feminism. He got people to use Dixie cups by convincing them that regular glasses were unsanitary. He manipulated the CIA into overthrowing Guatemala by convincing them the country was communist. This was a real film.
I could probably share that in another video, the Guatemala false flag event that also ended up harming a lot of people in Guatemala. That's another topic. I'm going to actually, I'll cover that in another video.
Look it up. It's fascinating. And he ran America's World War I propaganda and convinced the public to get behind the war because it was to spread democracy. And after the war, he decided that propaganda had gotten a bad name and suggested calling it public relations. And that's what public relation firms really are. Propaganda firms. And that's why I write books that teach kids about propaganda, about the history of fake news, about how if it's free, it's a trap, and how they try to trick us into Can you see?
Ukraine.
Yeah, so public relations people, like even Catherine Wozniak or whatever her name is, mentioned 666 times in that big article going over their the court hearings, because yes, I went through that as well. Propaganda, and people like that need jail, right? Like, how is this criminal? No, sorry, how is this not criminal? Another video I wanted to share. There's so much to cover because there's so much getting thrown at us right now, and it's all a distraction. The title of this is 5 Ukrainian officials arrested over theft of 40 million in war funds as Ukraine corruption persists. And Canada has given a lot of money, financial aid to Ukraine for a corrupted proxy war, like I've called out millions of times. And so has the US and countless other first world countries. And so there's already two yachts worth a total of $70 million for both of them that were people trying to steal and put the money in that and hide it. And then even within like the first year of the war being declared, there were people within government, within their own cabinet, that were fired because of corruption and money stealing and stuff like that. Just like Canada, people are not fired yet, but people are getting investigated, luckily. And I'm hoping that there's jail, because they jailed people that were trying to stop the tyranny. Okay, so there's people in jail right now that they're lying about, that are only in jail because of these Karens pushing a woke narrative that again has crippled us, and stealing our money and laughing about it. And Chrystia Freeland, even during the Emergency Act hearings, it was called out that she tried to steal $2 billion for a fake ass company, and even more. And I've talked about the ArriveCan app, how it was implemented or initiated in 2017, years before the pandemic was declared, and so all of these millions of dollars went to like a handful of people, experts, friends of the Liberal government, of people that were hiring, and did not go towards anything, and there was no work done. So I'll get to that, but
Ukraine has unearthed a $40 million scam. It involves an order for artillery shells. 100,000 were bought and paid for, but they were never delivered. 100,000 shells. The scam took place in August 2022, 6 months after the Russia-Ukraine war began. Kiev was in desperate need of arms and ammunition. You may remember the desperation. President Volodymyr Zelensky begging for foreign aid. But while he was doing that, his own officials were embezzling money. The scam was uncovered by Ukraine's security service, the SBU. They conducted raids on Saturday. They say they have arrested 5 people. 2 of them were senior officials from the Ministry of Defense.
Senior officials
Ukraine has unearthed
of their Minister of National Defense. And so if people within Canada want to do their jobs finally, people that are supposed to be doing the investigations and stuff like that, instead of hiring journalists as your experts, that'd be nice, right? Because we've already proven that as well.
The database, which is like a routine.
Yeah, there's just so much crazy news going on. VSafe data descriptions will be released soon, and more data from Canada.
Questionnaire that got sent to VSafe is the database, which is like a routine questionnaire that got sent to vaccinated people, right? And they had only released do you have fever, do you have chills, preset boxes. Well, now they have to release all of the text fields where people who had bad reactions would write in and say, well, actually, my head fell off, or, my child died, or, less serious things, of course. And that's 7.8 million records. And it's interesting that the CDC wanted to conceal that. They fought to conceal it. It's interesting that they lost. So there's going to be a massive volume of Americans telling the CDC what went wrong, that we're going to see in their own voices. Very moving. And also Canada's organization against vaccine injury has just asked to partner with our volunteers, because they had a successful FOIA, and they're releasing a massive database which will be able to show temporality in deaths and disabilities, which is very important, as you know, for surveilling a population. It's been difficult, as you said earlier, rightly, to say, well, there are all these excess deaths, there are all these new disabilities that data is documented, for instance, without a direct kind of 48 hours injection to heart attack. It's very difficult to firmly attribute those damages to the injection, that this database will allow that kind of analysis. So that's exciting.
And, and also, not even just within 48 hours, it's making the connection, but like they were trying not to report. They were calling anything that was prior to the 2-week mark of being not vaccinated. And so that was also how they were hiding the vaccine injuries. And as someone who has friends and people that I've worked with, even deployed with, that were even calling out at risk to themselves and their careers, calling out the possible vaccine injuries and the relation to like being overwhelmed, okay, in 2021 and 2022, being attributed to this therapeutic. And so lest we forget, we need to keep on this, because it's going to still keep on going on until we say something about it. And then all these scientists and experts that are saying that were involved in research and or science, whatever you want to call it, regarding therapeutics and viruses and stuff like that, like within a 4-year period, like 40 friggin' people, scientists, actual experts, like were heads in their fields, end up being murdered, suspicious deaths and other. This is how much they want to bury this, and how much they want these to continue to be rolled out, because there are people like Fauci who have made a career out of it and have made multi-billions of dollars for themselves and their friends and family who are causing a lot of harm and death. And people are calling them like devils or demons and Satan worshipers and stuff like that. And the irony in all of that is that these are just weak, disgusting individuals with that are vibrating on such a low level that they're just acting like what we're considering to be demonic, in my opinion. And if you look at like root words and stuff like that, like psyche, some people like it's actually in actually I'll show that as well. It's if I still have it up, I go through so many freaking weird research things. So Strong's Greek, if it pulls up. Psyche, for the blue letter Bible. Psyche, feminine noun. Okay, so they call it or classified it as soul, the breath of life. And so if you're a psycho or whatever you want to call it, or a psychopath, it's someone who is soulless or classified as having not having a soul. And that's where I believe the connection came from. Spirit, abstractly or concretely. So let's see what else. I'm just going through I had so many stories that I posted up here. Oh, Liberal MP, that stands for Member of Parliament, who said honk honk means Hail Hitler. She was promoted recently to Mental Health Minister. And that's what she looks like. And just what you would expect her to look like. And completely crazy.
The procurement watchdog about Trudeau's $54 million Arrive Can app. 76% of contractors who are supposed to have worked on this boondoggle did no work at all. None. More than 3/4 of the contractors. This is the same Arrive Can app, the $54 million Arrive Can app that had the 2-person IT middleman firm of GC Strategies receive $11 million. This is
GC Strategies.
Absolutely unbelievable. So think about the cost of all of Justin Trudeau's outside consultants to Canadian families, costing every Canadian family about $1,400 with the billions that he spent on outside consultants. That 2-person IT staffing firm, GC Strategies, they've received more than $60 million
2 people
in government contracts from Justin Trudeau just since 2017. This is the tip of the iceberg with the rot inside Justin Trudeau's government. And we're going to keep working to expose the waste and the corruption with ghost contractors and no-show contractors and falsified documents to bid up the price that these middlemen and these contractors are receiving. It's absolutely egregious. While Canadians are struggling to feed themselves, feed their families, heat their homes, and we have insiders lining their pockets in Ottawa. So this is from the Procurement Ombudsman today, with 3/4 of the contractors on the Arrive scam having done no work at all. And we're still waiting to hear from the Auditor General on this boondoggle. So we'll hear from her over the next couple of weeks as well. But we're going to keep digging into this in Parliament. You can count on that. So thank you for watching this video. Share it. Damning news.
Yeah, so just a whole lot of frustrating information coming out of Canada and internationally. But at least the lies are finally being like brought out to light. It took so many friggin' years, and people are still on my social media being trolls, like even on X, trying to just like I don't know, be trolls. I have no idea. But so even with the like I shared just like a screen capture of the anyways, maybe we'll just pull it up here. Let's see. Okay, let's see if it will. There we go. So this is information that I've been sharing with all levels of government, media, experts, and offered my services as a consultant for like 1/10 of a price of anyone that they were using, knowing that I would actually be doing a way better friggin' job. And so this was given to them. So no excuses for them to pretend that they didn't have it, because I've shared the sent messages. And these are submitted directly from Pfizer. And so I'll just go on the first one here. Just bear with me. This is redundant for some people. So this is directly cumulative analysis of post-authorization adverse events reported from Pfizer, received through 28th February 2021. Okay, lock date was February of 2021. For VAERS reported, only 3 to 5% of VAERS were being reported because they were trying to bury it, and they were not classifying anyone as being vaccinated until 2 weeks post inoculation. And as repeated, there was financial incentives for doctors and nurses to lie. And I've shared accounts of them on the record even admitting this, and people that were whistleblowers that are that also admitted this on the record. And some people have ultimately even died because of trying to share this information. So I'm just going to do a Control F search just to make it easier for everyone. So you see the list of abbreviations. And so when you look at events reported, infections and infestations, so 4.6% of the infestations, even just up towards that point, and people, this wasn't even like officially released to the majority of societies yet by this point. And I was sharing this information even before it was rolling out to the elderly and stuff like that in April of 2021. And so there was a lot of deaths that are not accounted for around that time, and long-term care homes, nursing homes, the rollout being pushed on the elderly. And anyways, I can go on a list of just how disgusting and appalling that even after sharing that information, people were still lying at that point. And that like February of 2021, that's almost 3 years ago. And then March of 2022, so almost 2 years ago now, sharing even more damning evidence coming from Pfizer with cancers and herpes and measles and AIDS and so many other different things, COVID, flu, pneumonia, being contracted through the inoculation. And then it's still being approved for children. And yeah, on that note, let me see if there's any more. I'm going to leave it at that because I'm already like almost 40 minutes in and I haven't even talked about astrotheosophy. I've got a friggin' ladybug that keeps on blocking my camera, and I keep on just like gently like just brushing it off, but it just keeps on going. Maybe because the light keeps on flashing. But actually, maybe I'm actually gonna separate. I'm gonna like rename this, and maybe I'll do an Astro Theosophy one in a separate video, because I did want to share. This is from Redacted, and this is from 9 hours ago. And this is Canada. Well, they're talking about Canada, so I do want to share this.
Canada stripped away freedoms and tortured the unvaccinated based on hate science, which is not science at all. That is what one author says in her new book, Fissman's Fraud. Dr. Regina Wattiel joins us today. She's a Canadian statistician who took the time to read the studies that the media and the Canadian government was using to implement pandemic policy. And she found she could not, in fact, follow the science, no matter how hard she tried. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Natalie. Glad to be here.
Yes, I finished your book over the weekend, and I want to lay this out briefly so that our audience explains how you got there and just how serious this is in terms of academic misinformation. So in 2022, Canada insisted on keeping strict restrictions and vaccine requirements on its population, even though the science was beginning to show that the vaccine did not impact the transmission of COVID. And then right on cue, this study pops up saying that the unvaccinated are a threat to the vaccinated and responsible for the pandemic raging on. The media picks it up. Politicians use it to implement policy. It's a big hit. But you, in fact, read it and realized that it's not based on population data, which was available, but instead a mathematical model. And you hit the roof. You became what I call a dog with a bone. I love it. You went to the journal, the university, and even the police to point out this fraud. So take me through it, how you got here, and why it set your hair on fire so much.
Okay, well, the problem, the big part of the reason why I went after this is because my family was really impacted by the mandates and the restrictions. So in the fall of 2021, what we had here in Canada, we had vaccine passports. So the unvaccinated were banned from most public venues, restaurants, gyms, movie theaters. The universities most of them were, in order for university students to go on campus, they had to be vaccinated. And then the federal government had its vaccine mandates on federal workers. So in order to work, they had to be vaccinated, and they had to also impose travel restrictions. So we couldn't even travel by plane or train within our own country. Yep. It was a very isolating and very hard time for millions of Canadians. And then what happened in December at Christmas of 2021 is we had the Omicron surge. And so the COVID-19 cases soared to record heights despite the vaccines. 80% of the population was vaccinated. Still, we had these record surges, not only in cases, but in hospitalizations. And instead of admitting that these vaccines did not curb transmission, and instead of admitting failure, the government basically doubled down and started imposing even more restrictions. And so that was December 21 and in January 2022. And at the time, they were even imposed additional restrictions on unvaccinated truckers. So the world recalls that sparked the trucker convoy, the Freedom Convoy. And so the Freedom Convoy came in, and it put a lot of pressure on the provinces to relent on their passports and on the federal government to end their mandates and travel restrictions. So out of desperation, the federal government, Trudeau's government, imposed the Emergencies Act, where they basically trampled on the protesters and froze bank accounts and that type of thing, in order to, stop the momentum, in order to salvage their restrictions. But they needed to do more. They needed the science. And so this is where Fissman comes in, because when you look at the actual, government of Ontario data, Ontario is the largest province here in Canada. When you look at our data, the government's own data, it showed that the cases, the COVID cases, were dominated by the vaccinated, and that the vaccinated actually had higher incident rates than the unvaccinated.
Yep. And so, yep, I was saying it from the beginning.
Yeah, Trudeau was in desperate need of science and justification for his mandates. So in comes Fisman and his colleagues. And what Fisman does is he and his colleagues concoct a model to simulate fake data that shows the opposite of what the real data shows. Fake data that shows that it's the unvaccinated.
So not only did they friggin' lie and not even address that, like myself and countless others were sharing even information I was getting out of Israel, the UK, from like government stuff, like stuff that they would never get, technical data that they would never get on their friggin' owns because they were going off of Vice News leftists with zero life experience, blaming it on us, the unvaccinated, blaming us. So what the Canada was insane, and these people need to be jailed. Like, these are hate crimes. This is like economic, like military strikes, treason. There's just so much. There's so much. My mortgage doubled. Other people now, their mortgages are going to be renewed this year, because in Canada, where you're locked in at the longest you could be locked in at a rate is 5 years. And so closed fixed, I'm still at like almost 7% friggin' interest rate. And before this, I was at under 2% for my interest. That's why my friggin' house, and I had to flee the suburbs because my life was at risk. Even my friggin' my brake oil fluid being messed with and the cap being up, and I have proof of that. And people like with cameras, like long friggin' professional cameras, like in the backseat of blacked out Audis. When I'm at a dog trail, that's like, half an hour, 45 minutes away from my house. Boot prints on my back steps in where I have a gate in my little backyard. And so someone clearly going through the fence and in onto my property, like right up to my patio. And I have the videos of that, tagging my home, trying to break into my home and circling my block for hours. Destruction crew people harassing me like in my backyard, like right off my backyard for years. And I could go on a list. And people loved it, and they justified it because they hated me because I voted not liberal. That's for damn sure. And because I was speaking out against national sites, wildlife preservation areas, and heritage sites and stuff like that from getting destroyed from numpties who were causing a lot of harm in areas as well, and illegally doing work. But anyways, just vilified, and people still vilifying people like myself.
That have higher COVID-19 rates. And then they tried to pass off their fake results as fact. And they use this, fake results to scapegoat the unvaccinated, to provide justification for the federal government's mandates and restrictions. And then media ran with it. Warning everybody of the risk.
And I'll do one better for you. I should learn to edit my videos. I want to hire someone to do that. Because I was saying to Dave Weiss, I was saying to Dave Weiss yesterday, I have so much information and content in my brain and stuff like that. And so like, that's where my level of experience and expertise lies. And so I would like to get someone to do editing so that it's just like something that, like, not another thing that I'm going to have to focus on and worry about. So, I got to go into the windows. And so this was what I sent to the ombudsman. If you want to see the date, this was to him and to Wayne Eyre and to countless others, November 2021. And this was a template that I had given to multiple people within the military and other government organizations to try to help them to see if they could get their chain of command to minute these memorandums and look at the links. And so my references were literally about the original trials being debunked. This is 3 years ago. Yeah, the original trials being debunked. .71% of COVID-19 deaths are only vaccinated as of September 17th, 7 September 2021. I shared that immediately. I shared this. Natural immunity, talked about that. Again, this is like 3 years ago. And more. Aspirating needles, I was talking about that. And then this, because this lady was just talking about Ontario being the biggest province in Canada and where our capital resides. I showed the Ontario policy of inflating numbers by 66 to over 80%. I broke that down. So I'm going to open the hyperlink. Potential threat, yada, yada, yada. Excuse me. I know the last time I checked, it was archived. And so I had to go back on the Wayback Machine in order to get it up. But having a PDF. It's just taking a little bit to load. Just want to see it here. Yeah, it's archived. So I'm going to present that. And so anyone that was telling me, oh yeah, and I had this friggin' person on X, still refuting this and saying that I was getting my information from memes. the irony in that, the irony, guys, like, come on. Okay, it's not showing. Why is it not going up? Maybe if I click on it. Okay. It is archived. And it was archived as of, it was, I want to say March or May of last year. So 2023. Because now it doesn't suit their agenda. But this was like, they were overinflating the numbers because they were saying that for anyone that was a confirmed case, by the way, a false positive for COVID, they were saying that within certain age groups, they had to overinflate the numbers because you weren't getting an accurate assessment of the population. They're saying like, oh, if there's this many like that are confirmed, then there must be this many in the population. Crazy. That's why this is archived and no longer available. But this is from Public Health Ontario. Okay, where all the decisions were being made. Okay, so from 0 to 9, population approximately this. Okay, reported cases 179. Estimated number of infections randomly 639. So again, huge increase. 80 plus. This is the population. They're getting their whatever. I don't know where they're getting their stats for that. It's probably in here somewhere. This is an official public health site. So reported cases for like less than 5,000. Estimated number of cases almost 25,000. You just can't make this up. Yeah, less than 3,000. Estimated over almost 10,000. So they're saying their estimated detection rate was like less than 30% for all of them. That's why I was saying like overinflating significantly by at least 66%, right? And that was being modest because that would be 33.3% or under. And so they're not doing that anymore because it doesn't suit their narrative. And so I will keep on with this lady who has a degree in statistics, by the way. That's a lot of friggin' math and science that you have to know. And so she might know a little bit more than you do as well. No offense for anyone on here that is still believing in the safety and effectiveness
of merely hanging out with unvaccinated Canadians.
Which is so upsetting because if you look at the study, they don't even use COVID-19 data at all. They say we simulated a respiratory infectious disease.
I'll be right back.
And so the media should have known this is a simulation. They didn't seem to care. They just started running headlines that you put a compendium in your book of the list of headlines about how you're putting people at risk by going to the gym or getting on a train or an airplane or anything like that. So, it's a complete lack of duty by the media, but we sort of expect that. But the politicians who used it to implement policy is, I want to say, more upsetting. You seem upset by all of it, so you can tell me what you find the most upsetting.
Well, right away, when I looked at the study, I was well aware of what the data actually showed. So I knew right away that it was bogus, but it just wasn't going away. Everybody was running with it, and it was so clearly fraudulent. What I found most the worst was when the academic institutions, the research institutions, would not retract the study or set the record straight. They allowed it to continue, and that's really when I realized how corrupted the system is. It's not just the government here. You know, the government is like Trudeau's government is there's a scandal every hour. It's terrible, and unfortunately, the courts are more than happy to look the other way. But by going through all the, you know, trying to get the paper retracted and going through the different organizations, I realized how deeply involved the research institutions themselves were. And this was overt fraud. It was used to scapegoat the unvaccinated and prop up these horrible mandates. And they knew, and they did nothing. And in fact, when you look at their involvement, especially the Journal, it looked like they were actively involved in that deception. So,
right. So you uncovered that the lead author, Fisman, has been on the payroll of Moderna and was given promotions. So was the university that published the paper. They were later given money by the Canadian government in order to continue to research the pandemic. Can you explain that conflict of interest and how that was not disclosed to the public?
well, actually, a lot of these conflicts of interest are very public. So you look at David Fisman, and he's basically Canada's front man for pandemic modeling. So he was involved in modeling right in the beginning, and he advised all levels of government, you know, municipal, provincial, federal. And during this time, he has a lot of connections to various pharmaceutical companies. He served on a lot of advisory boards. And the university itself, University of Toronto, was in partnership with Moderna. They announced a big partnership with Moderna weeks before Fisman's study came out. And they've, you know, all universities here, a lot of universities in Canada received a lot of grant money from the government to combat things like vaccine hesitancy. So these things were actually pretty well known here. It's pretty open conflict of interest.
Now, you went bit by bit to people to get this retracted, to the medical journal, the University of Toronto, I believe, and even the fraud department. I guess you would call it the Canadian version of the FBI, right? Can you tell us what happened at each one of those?
Right. So first I went to the journal because they published the study, and I asked for a retraction. And the journal it wasn't just me who went to the journal. Dozens of researchers and scientists in Canada asked for corrections to be made and that paper to be retracted.
I'm back.
But they pretty much ignored me. So I went to the University of Toronto, and University of Toronto has its own department for dealing with research integrity. So they had to they had to engage in dialogue with me. And at first they just tried to deny that they could deal with what Fisman did. So I actually had to go through their guidelines, research guidelines, and show them exactly in the policy where it shows they have to do something. And then they just tried to deflect it. And then when I went back to them, absolute proof this was fraud, backed them into a corner, and they just closed the file. So at that point, I went to the funding agency because this research was funded by the Canadian government. It was funded through CIHR.
By us. It was funded.
So I asked them to investigate the researchers and to set the record straight because it had been used in our parliament to justify extending the travel restrictions. And what happened with CIHR is the president of CIHR, along with the presidents of NSERC and another department, they got together and they voted not to set the record straight and to not investigate. And at that point, I had been doing a lot of research into these organizations, and I felt I had enough evidence to ask for a police investigation. So I wrote a 150-page evidentiary report, and I sent it to the Ontario Provincial Police, their anti-rackets branch, and asked for an investigation. So they were not open to that.
Yes, you mentioned that the person you sat down with said, I've had 4 vaccines, I'm fine. Everyone's fine. This is not a big deal.
Helen Gruss, Ottawa Police Services, over 20 years, working sexual assault, child abuse unit for over 7 years, someone that I've worked with on higher level contracts, who is well accredited, incredible human being. People can attest to that. And on trial, over $100,000 in court fees right now, even though she has a family and she's a hero, because of sharing the information that I've been sharing, the medical, government, and scientific data to try to save lives, and especially within children, because there was links to sudden infant deaths and this therapeutic. And a few months before, it was the end of November, early December of 2021 is when they approved these inoculations for children under the age of 12, which was mortifying. But at least they approved it to be 1/3 the dose. But again, this is still just like infuriating. And then within a few months of that, what happened? Freedom Convoy. Again, this is staged and planned at the highest levels by leftists and left-wing activists and stuff like that. Unfortunately, and then with government embeds and role players or crisis actors, whatever you want to, just like January 6th. But there was more people that showed up peacefully because this was an opportunity to actually spread awareness and shed light as to all the misinformation that the mainstream media coming out of Ottawa mostly was spewing towards Canada and other people. So a lot of people took that opportunity to be peaceful, like I'm saying, but share their messages and spread awareness. And these were people that were experts in their field and who were vilified, character assassinated, all of this stuff. And just trying to be heard by people within government that don't care about us at all and continue to lie. And so even Helen Bruce, like she was suspended and charged January 30th. So as of yesterday, like 2 years ago, that weekend of the Freedom Convoy, because she was also someone that was part of the OPS that was trying to make this peaceful and knew the situation of January 6th, just like I did, and a few other people that I can't name. And it was government within that were getting attacked by other government people and harassed and terrorized and demonized and tortured too. There's cases of that, and there's military courts, that are underway because of that as well, because of what happened with even with soldiers, and even someone that I know personally being kicked out while she was pregnant or had just given birth, because of refusing the shot because she would be high risk. She was almost 40 years old at the time, first pregnancy, because of being of service to Canada over 20 years in the military as an officer, and kicked out, and gracefully accepted that fate and is fighting this in the courts just like this lady is. And so a profound amount of people have been deeply impacted by this, people that are working in government or who were working within government, and people aren't hearing that, seeing that, and seeing the people that are actually pushed up and propped up and hired to be consultants and experts were not. And a lot of people would have been, unfortunately, alive and well today had it not been for these ignorant people that I continue to name until they get arrested.
So can you lay out why this was a big deal? Not just, oh, I couldn't go to the gym, but how there are recurring harms that happened. One, because the vaccine was not properly tested. And so we didn't have a risk-benefit analysis of taking the vaccine. We didn't have informed consent. And two, because of the way that the unvaccinated were scapegoated and kept from their freedoms.
Right. So there's a lot to unpack there, because the vaccines, there's issues with them on a lot of levels. So Visman's study dealt mostly with transmission. And so my book does knock that down a lot, because it was obvious it doesn't curtail transmission at all. And without that, there really is no justification.
And I keep on proving it, even from Pfizer, that doesn't include J&J, doesn't include Moderna, which if you look at it, like it could have been roughly like a 50-50-ish or 45-55% split between those two. And so you could double up those VAERS that I just shared, 4.6% of people within the original trials, reporting VAERS. And again, only 3 to 5% of those being confirmed reported. How many? Moderna needs to also submit their VAERS, and so do others.
Mandates. And I go with that because if you have a potentially unsafe drug on the market, at least a potentially lethal, drug, the best line of defense is to simply not take it. So if they take that right away and you're forced to take it, then you really don't have, any defense against this. So in Canada, they made life unbearable for the unvaccinated. It wasn't just I couldn't go to the movies and I couldn't go to the gym, or my kids, couldn't go to restaurants. My two oldest were in university at the time, and they were varsity level athletes. Both of them were banned from the university campus. They were both kicked out of varsity sports. They've never competed again. It destroyed their varsity sports completely. And they were big athletes. They made it to nationals right before the pandemic was called. My youngest was isolated from everything. My husband, he's a federal employee, so the mandates affected him, and so he didn't work for most of 2022.
I was fired. My contracts, not fired because I'm a consultant. I'm incorporated, but my contracts were all delayed because a lot of it, again, is in person, and or completely canceled altogether because of my vaccine status, and or because of what I was sharing, talking about the leak plan, like Pandemic 201, Cladex, so much information, all the medical scientific stuff. But like I just shared, I just want to reinforce, because like if you want to look at the stats, I didn't fully go into that document because I've done it before, but I showed you like just one case when they're looking at estimates of case detection. This was like them, like they didn't even go off this one. So if you go further down, sensitivity analysis, this is the lower. So this was a higher estimated number of cases. This was like at the highest, which again, they would have likely used this one. Lower estimated percentage detection in these age groups, 0 to 9. So again, if we look at the estimated detection percentage, 14%. So like, again, like over reporting by 86%. And again, how many of these were false positives? Okay. And how and with these PCR tests and rapid tests, were they able to tell the difference between the flu and COVID? A lot of people, there's a lot of scientific people, and even people that, worked with the PCR tests that say that they were not able to do that. And so this is where I would like, where we need to look at this as well. Like even more, they were over reporting by over 86% in cases, 80%, 80%, 70%, 70%, 70 something percent, 76%, like, and then you look at the reported deaths. So use alternate estimates of IFR. Still like so friggin' adjust. Okay, so here we go. Adjust for potential underreporting of deaths by increasing reported deaths count by 50%. Like, if you're not seeing this, okay, they were making shit up. This is Public Health Ontario archives now, eh? Adjust for potential underreporting of deaths by increasing reported death counts by 50%. If you can't see how messed up that is, I don't know what to tell you. And these are for all my trolls and haters that saying I'm a pseudoscientist, like with a PhD, with the acronyms, doctor, all like you guys failed. You failed. Right from Public Health Ontario. I was just giving you reports from your friggin' sites.
My sister, she got fired from her position as a heart technician. I mean, it was devastating. And it completely changed our life, but not just our life. Like, millions of people suffered under this and are still suffering. Cool. And when I went to, I took part in the trucker convoy. I went to that protest like 13 times. It was so uplifting because you had so many people together who finally had hope, that something was going to be done. And I met a lot of people who suffered. I met people who were vaccinated and they were injured. And, a lot of stories came out of that. So it was devastating. It's been very difficult here in Canada.
Oh my God.
And Fisman's study, sorry, do you want to?
No. Go ahead. Please go ahead.
I was just saying that Fisman's study didn't just scapegoat the unvaccinated. It didn't just justify the mandates that were happening at the time. You could see that it was laying down the foundation for future mandates. It was giving you the framework for the pseudoscience as to why we should be able to mandate vaccines, not just now, but in the future. And I found that. So I feel I have to do something in order for my children to have a future here.
Yeah. Okay. I want to ask you one more question, and then I want to direct our viewers to, this will continue as a redacted conversation over on our community at redacted.inc. I want you to just, before we continue this conversation, define what you mean by hate science and what you think that the average person can do about it.
So a hate science, I'm looking at, fraudulent science done for the purpose of harming a specific group of individuals. So in this case, we had the fabrication and falsification for the purpose of scapegoating unvaccinated Canadians and basically taking away their rights and freedoms. So that was the purpose behind the science.
Okay.
Yeah. And what we can do about it, well, what I've shown, and it's pretty clear here, is that the establishment is not going to investigate itself. The establishment is not going to stop doing what it's doing. So I think it's up to individuals and grassroots movements to do something about what is going on here.
Peacefully.
So I'm kind of hoping that my book exposes what's going on, but also gives people a sense of validation and empowerment to do something the way I have.
Yeah, it's a really interesting read. I think that anyone who's interested in understanding how we've been collectively manipulated, Canada, one of the worst, will enjoy this book. So thank you for writing it and bringing it to my attention. We're going to continue this over on as a redacted conversation. So on this live platform tonight.
She probably means Rumble. Excuse me. And even Dr.
Now going to look at the British.
He is an expert. And he's been covering this now for years as well. At first, he had it wrong. No one's perfect. He's also someone that inoculated himself and has since said that he, would have considered not doing it had he been given the information that people like myself were sharing with him and to him for years. Yeah, so the excess child deaths, people that I know personally who are heroes that have been vilified and suspended, charged. And again, like there's no mistaking the fact that people like Helen Bruce were suspended and stuff like that during the freedom that first weekend, because the people that did it wanted there to be a riot. They wanted there to be chaos, and they wanted to blame it on people that were not vaccinated, and they were painting us as right-wing white supremacists. Okay, despite the fact that there were like people of all different friggin' demographics, cultures, ideologies, skin colors, religious backgrounds that were sharing this information, and a lot of experts. And so I'm hoping that eventually someone reaches out from the mainstream media, contacts me and or a civil lawyer within Ottawa, and I have so much proof that I can give to get these people on trial, Nuremberg 2.0, 3.0, whatever you want to call it, and actually hold these clowns accountable. And I have years of videos, okay, that I still have saved on a hard drive that have not even been published yet on Rumble yet, from old deleted YouTube accounts. I put a few of them up, but with the names and the receipts in those videos as well. And then again with my sent emails from my laptop and call logs, you name it. You can see that there's been people like myself since the very beginning that have tried to stop all this from happening. And anyways, I will leave it at that. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful day.